star, a superstar, but he is. We use it a little too easily sometimes, but there's a guy that is just going to continue to improve, and he's going to be an exceptional player. Clemente right now has a bit of a head start because of where they finished mini camps and OTAs at the left guard position. Lolito certainly will push him, but as was mentioned, not very deep all the way across there. That when somebody goes down, that ripple effect could really, really be serious. Not enough depth in the offensive line, but then when you look at the best teams in the league, they get 5 offensive linemen, and none of them ever get hurt. So that's what we have to hope for the Saints, that they could settle on the left guard, Pete holds up at right guard, and that they make it through the whole season unscathed.
Yeah. You know what I was encouraged about when you talk about Pete? He didn't have turkey arms this year, man. You notice he kind of went to the weight room?
Well, he's still growing, and that's sometimes that's something that we have a tendency to forget. No one's ever a finished product. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. Year to year, even from the beginning of the season to end of the season, there's going to be changes. But Andrus Pete, 6'7", 315-ish or so, is only 22 years old. He has 3 more years of physical development ahead of him. Men don't finish their physical development till their mid-20s. Sometimes their mental development takes a lot longer than that. But you're exactly right that he came into the league different than a lot of other guys that are his size, that most of the time they're underdeveloped in the lower body and their upper body is developed. He came in, he had a pro lower body the second he hit the ground here in New Orleans, and his upper body now is having to develop into that. And I think you were very observant there, Kyle T., that he not only growing, but he's got 3 more years of physical development, and you really saw that in his upper body, especially his arms.
Yeah.
And when I look at the ages of some of these guys, we look at Michael Thomas as an example, and we figure he's going to be a good player, and he's going to be a contributor. He's older than Brandon Cooks. He's 23 years old going into his rookie year. Brandon Cooks is 22 years old going into his 3rd year. Mm-hmm. So should have a breakout year. Brandon Cooks has definitely has some good physical development ahead of him as well. I think this year is going to be a breakout season for him. But when you look at a Tim Lolito, 4th year in the league, he's 27 years old. Not going to be much more physical development. What you see is what you get at that age. Clemente, let's see, who once again I was impressed with. He's 26 years old going into his 4th year. So you're looking at guys that are pretty much the way that they're going to be. But Andrus Pete still has a lot of physical growth. He's not a finished product by any sense of the word.
Okay, good. And I know, Barry, you touched on this. Fleener at tight end is going to be a stud for us, and we still have Josh Hill. Will Hill ever pan out to be that really star guy, or do you think he's just going to be a steady performer for the team, Barry?
Yeah, I think he's just going to be a steady backup. I think in a different situation, where he actually had a chance to be the starter somewhere. We had thought the Saints were going to the Saints were going to be that team last year, but he just didn't seem like he took that next step. He wasn't quite ready to take over the reins, so to speak. And Ben Watson wound up, he basically a 35, 36-year-old guy wound up beating him out and then having a career season. So it kind of pushed him back down the depth chart, so to speak. And then another thing that Hill doesn't do that Humana Wananui, still having trouble with that name, Humana Wananui does so much better, which is block. Hill's more of a pass catcher type of guy. And that's kind of that. If you recall, that was the knock on Jimmy Graham, where that Jimmy Graham wasn't that good of a blocker. And I think Hill, is much in that same respect, is not that great of a blocker. And then, when they brought in Hamana Nui, it was because they wanted to run that 13 personnel alignment. I don't know if John's still on the line with us or not, but John had touched on that in one of his articles, I think, last year, and did a film breakdown and study on what Hamana Nui brought to the Saints offense that he did at New England. So, as far as this year, I think you're going to see, obviously, Fleener is going to be your starter, and it's going to be your, he's going to be that type of tight end that the Saints have always utilized, the way they've always utilized tight ends in their offense. He's going to be, the go-to guy, so to speak. I think Hill will still see some reps. He'll probably, give Fleener a breather here and there. And your Hamana Nui's basically your blocking tight end, so to speak, and run, when they're running the football. But, outside of Fleener, I just don't see anybody ever emerging as a star unless it's through the injury. Fleener's really been relatively injury-free in his first few years. The Colts just didn't utilize him right because they kind of made him and Dwayne Allen, rotating in and out in that two tight end offense that they ran in Indy. So he never really had a chance to shine. If you've ever seen Colby Fleener, if you watched college football and watched him at Stanford a few years ago, he was an All-American tight end.
Yeah.
I mean, he's fantastic. The Colts just did, shockingly, considering that they had Andrew Luck as their quarterback, they just didn't utilize Fleener the way I think they should have utilized him anyway. If you saw Andrew Luck and Colby Fleener together at Stanford, it's almost baffling why they even drafted them together in the same draft and then never let them do together what they did well at Stanford. Chuck Pagano, I guess, is a little more conservative type of guy on offense. Chuck Pagano reminds me a lot of Jim Mora in many ways. And true to form, they basically made Colby Fleener into Hobie Brenner. So,
that's funny.
You don't want to make a guy who's potentially a superstar catching the ball and turn him into a Hobie Brenner, but that's basically what they did. So I think that's the position that is going to continue to be solid for the Saints in this offense is tight end.
All right, good. Guys, we are about to wrap up the show, but I want a couple of last pointers. Right now, Grayson sits back there. You still have Luke McCown. We know Drew Brees is our starter, point blank. Do you think this is going to be a training camp where they're going to either keep Grayson, or if he doesn't show anything, they're going to release the kid? And I think it'll be a terrible mistake to lose him, especially after spending a high draft pick on him. What are your thoughts?
Well, the whole thing about it is you've got to determine is this kid the guy or not. I mean, when I say the guy, I mean is he the successor? Is he the heir apparent? Because that's what you drafted him to do. And to me, it's a telling sign. And I don't know if John's still on the line with us or not, but I'm sure John.
Here.
Oh, good. Because I know you got something to say about it, and I'm sure Coach being a coach is going to have definite thoughts on this too. But here's my take on it, and me and John have discussed this ad nauseum, and we'll discuss it at great length on our show coming up next week or the week after, which is Coach and Kyle and Professor, if he's still there. You guys remember coming up 1970s, early 80s. If your team is 4-8 and you're eliminated from the playoffs, basically, okay, you have no shot at getting the wild card, okay?
Right.
Traditionally, and you can go back to we can take the sport of pro football back years and years. Traditionally, when your team is doing poorly during the season and it's near the end of the season and you're playing what's essentially what I consider meaningless games, what was the first thing that your team always did? They put it in your backups and let them play and let them get experience. So all your rookie players, especially the quarterback, went in and played those last few meaningless quote-unquote games because that's what you do. You're not going to get your stars hurt. You're not going to get the guy that you're bringing back for the following season. You're not going to risk injuring them. And in a case of a rookie quarterback who you know needs experience, who you know needs playing time, you start him. Now, I understand the argument, and even Nick Underhill from the Advocate kind of got into the argument with me and John, and we all have our own separate opinions. But this is just my opinion. And this comes from, I'm not no great, coach when he gets his turn will allude to this, I'm sure. But I am no great evaluator of talent, okay? I just know that, when your football team is 4-8, you're going to give the guy, the rookie, some playing time. The fact that they did not put him in there speaks volumes to me. It speaks absolute volumes. And true to form, we've seen in minicamp exactly why. Because he lacks self-confidence. He lacks accuracy. He's inconsistent. There's even, speculation that he has trouble taking command of the huddle. Those are critical things to me that suggest that maybe this kid isn't what they thought he was. Because, they were in love with him. They flew out to Colorado Springs and watched him work out personally before they drafted him. So that tells you how much they liked him coming out of college.
Okay.
And, he had a great career at Colorado State. So I don't want to demean the young man at all because, when he sees articles about me questioning his talent, Big Easy Believer, not that he cares, but it's not fair to him to say he's a bust or he's done. I don't want to put that tag on him because I still have to see training camp starting tomorrow. I still have to see him play in the preseason games, which will really be telling and tell us a lot. So I'm only basing my evaluation on him based on other people's opinions. People like Cat Terrell, formerly of Thomas Picayune, is fixing to leave. Larry Holder, Thomas Picayune, those two specifically, who are really critical of how he looked at and were just being honest and giving their fair assessment and saying that he's not ready.
Okay. Let me ask you. Well,
it's a little more. Well, go ahead.
Well, yeah, Barry, but those are valid points. Let me hear, John. What is your counterpoint to this?
Well, as far as Grayson goes, my thing is, and Barry kind of alluded to it, I'm not going to pass judgment on Grayson at all until I see him in a preseason game. I don't care what people do in training camp a lot of times because, a prime example, defense has looked amazing in the past 2 years in training camp, but I'll tell you, it hadn't amounted to jack squat in the season. And I think that's just sometimes that the media sees stuff or we see stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, this guy is going to be the next best thing, and then it just never transpires. But for Grayson, I think when you throw a rookie to the wolves, and especially at a quarterback, it's a position that, and I did in my article, I wish I had the stats in front of me, but all the quarterbacks taken in the third round and later, only a couple of them have actually played. I think Nick Foles was one of them. Russell Wilson was obviously a big one, but, nobody had really been a factor. And Grayson kind of fits in that category because when you throw and rush a quarterback, especially with a system like the Saints have, which isn't, I would say it's probably one of the more complex systems. Not to demean anybody else out there, but I think there's a lot to be learned. I think it's encouraging when you get reports that, Grayson tries hard to mimic everything that Breeze does down to the T. I think you'll see some progression out of him. But again, I'm not going to pass judgment or label on the bus. I think it's encouraging that the Saints are only going in there for 3 quarterbacks because you're going to see a lot more Garrett Grayson out there. Breeze might play a full quarter combined, or 2 quarters maybe if we're lucky, this whole preseason. You're going to get a good look at what Grayson's has. I think